Today we're going to be taking a look at the Breitling Avenger 2 Seawolf. This is Breitling's professional diver with 3,000 meters of water resistance. Now that's something that Breitling isn't typically known for because they're the Pilot's brand. However, they have been making a dive watch for a quite long time because really you can't be a prolific high-end watch manufacturer and not make a professional diver. It is the largest most active segment in all of watches. So if you want to sell to the masses, you've got to make a diver. Now the thing is, while Breitling's been doing that for quite a while, they really haven't done it masterfully. And I think it just took till recently when they redesigned the Avenger Seawolf that they finally nailed it, and I'll tell you why in a couple of minutes. Let's go over a couple of specs to begin with. We'll start here with the case size. You're looking at a 45 millimeter case diameter, which is larger than their Chronomat, smaller than the Super Avenger. Now you can buy the Avenger in a few different variations. You know, they've got the automatic chronograph, which is actually a very slim watch. They've slimmed down the case design over the past couple of years. You can buy the automatic GMT, and then of course you have this, which is the Seawolf. Now the Seawolf is going to be a lot thicker. So you're going up to 18.4 millimeters in thickness. So it's a very chunky, hefty watch. When you're wearing it, you definitely feel it. Now, that's the thing with Breitling. Any size Breitling you buy, it will be heavy for its size because they use very thick case walls, very thick crystals, and they really like to kind of overdo everything. There's nothing wrong with that. That's one of the things that I've loved about Breitling. This is my personal watch. This was not sent to me. This is not anything else. This is the third Breitling that I've owned. I had a Chronomat back in the early 2000s, and I bought a Super Avenger just a few years ago, about 4 years ago. And I really like this because now I like slightly smaller watches, although this one plays a little bit small for me. Not the case, but the dial opening, because you have this thick case, tight, very chunky case, large bezel, and the actual case opening is fairly small. So it looks a teeny tiny touch small on me, but I still love it. The Super Avenger at 48 millimeters was really large. So this is definitely a lot more in line with what I'm wearing these days. I've always been a big fan of Breitling. I love the quality. They're not as exotic as some other brands are, but they're also a little bit more affordable. When you look at this, the MSRP is $4,325. Now, in this range of watch, you gotta realize that 3,000 meters water resistant, you're comparing this to a Rolex Sea Dweller. Sea Dweller is going to cost you a hell of a lot more money. So that's why this could be called a bargain. Plus, if you don't care about a factory warranty, you could buy this for about $3,300 online at places like AuthenticWatches.com and Joma Shop. So keep that in mind. If it's not that big of a deal to have a factory warranty, you'll get their warranty, which from what I've heard, no issues whatsoever. But do keep in mind, this is a certified chronometer. You may have a different, I don't know, level of expectation for this movement, and you want to have a certain degree of care, and you want it to go back to Breitling should it require any repair. I totally understand that. So that's something to keep in mind. So let's continue on with the specs. So you've got an all brushed stainless steel case and bracelet. The sides of the case are mirror polished, and the sides of the bezel. Nothing else. Everything else is a brushed finish, which is very low-key for Breitling. I go back again to my Super Avenger. The entire thing was mirror polished except for the top face of the bezel. That was done in a brushed finish. And it was very loud. It was very bright. It was absolutely gorgeous. But it was a scratch magnet. So that's something to keep in mind too. On a satin finish, you can very easily brush that out yourself with a Scotch-Brite pad. So this is more of a daily wearable watch in my opinion. The movement inside is going to be the Caliber 17 Breitling movement. It's not really a Breitling movement, it is just their particular version of an ETA 2824. So they've modified it. It has an autonomy of 42 hours, so it will run for 42 hours on a single wind. What it is basically, it's the highest grade version of the ETA eBosch that has been assembled and tuned and worked up at Breitling's Chronometry in Le Chaux-de-Fonds, Switzerland. They have their own movement manufactory. So they make their own movements. You know, the caliber B01 for a great example, that was their first independent caliber. So at the times that they use an ETA movement, a third-party movement, they modify it themselves. So they're changing out things, or they're buying an E-Bosch, so they're not even getting the escapement. So they're adding these things. They're using parts from Glucidor, Nivarox, Nivaflex, so you're getting better quality mainspring, better quality balance, and they're fine-tuning all these higher grade components to meet with the COSC specs and pass regulation, because Breitling now submits 100% of their movements to the COSC for certification. And really the only other brand that really does that is Rolex. And Breitling didn't used to do that. You would have to look at certain markings on the case. You have to look at the reference number to see if yours was going to be chronometer certified or not. Now on these newer watches, as you see there, it's actually printed on the dial. All that means to you is it's guaranteed to be as accurate as it possibly can be in varying temperatures, varying positions, and shock resistance when the watch is being made. But then when they case up the movement into the case, they send it out to their distributors, who sends it out to a retailer, who then sends it out to you. Who knows what's going to happen? But this one has been extraordinarily accurate for me. I haven't gained or lost more than a second and a half a day. I'm perfectly happy with that. You've got the Pro 3 bracelet on here, so it's a slight new upgrade on the original bracelets. The the Pros I never liked because it had that protruding center link. It was small, it was square, it stuck up. I just didn't like it. The Pro 2s I love. That's what I had on my Super Avenger. The Pro 3 is basically just a little bit wider, I think, on the center link. I don't have another one to compare it to. I don't have a Pro 2 sitting here, so I can't be 100% certain, but it definitely seems a little bit wider on that center link. And they are assembled with screws. For those that have never disassembled a Breitling bracelet, you're going to need some patience, because you're not just going to take out a screw and then pop out another screw and take a link out. You're actually separating entire components of the bracelet links. You have to keep that in mind, because this, if you notice, this is all done at an angle. Each link is angled. It's a very subtle look, but one that I've always loved from Breitling. But that means you can't run your screw from here to there because it's at an angle. So you're actually going to be disassembling the links. It's not difficult, but you have to pay attention to what you're doing. You have the double-coated anti-reflective sapphire crystal, which works extremely well. Right now you're seeing a very minor reflection of my studio lights, but in pretty much every everyday situation, when this is on the wrist, you see nothing. All you see is crystal clear into that volcano black dial. It is really, really cool. One of the things that a lot of people don't know about Breitling, and we're going to try to get the camera to focus here, take a look at the Flying Bee logo, the Breitling logo. It is actually cast of solid gold. A lot of people don't know that. It's like one of those little things about Rolex that unless you're a real Rolex freak, you don't know. Every Rolex, whether it be steel or gold or platinum, their hands are solid gold, even on their sport models. And people just don't, they go, really? That can't possibly be true. But it is, and that's one of the things that they do. With Breitling, they do give you a solid gold logo on all of their watches. So even if you're buying an all-steel watch, you're still getting some gold in there, which is kind of neat. It's kind of a nice thing to know that you have. It doesn't really add much value, but it's a nice thing to know that you have. You've got a 120-click unidirectional rotating bezel on here. It's very, very precise. Works extremely well. I've been very, very happy with this watch. Overall, one of the things that used to bug me a little bit on Breitling is the clasp, because once you've got this open, once you've got the flip lock open, sometimes you can't get in here to get it open because they run the clasp very, very far over here. This watch is a little bit easier for me than in the past to get that pried open, but it was an issue. I remember on my Super Avenger, it was kind of a pain in the ass to take the damn thing off. So this one is a lot easier to use. I love the extra large crown on here with the knurling. They did a fantastic job on that. Great tactility, very, very easy to get your hands on that. Very smooth, very nicely done. You feel that the very fine threading between the crown and the case. Very, very, very well done. Let's see. Oh, one big deal about this watch is that Breitling has finally stepped up their luminescence game. It's really been far too weak for far too long. Even in the previous generation Seawolf, just going back a couple of years, you always get two dial choices. You get the combat dial, which is the stencil military style numerals, or these stick markers. But even with the stick markers on the previous version of this just a year or two ago, they were mirror polished stick markers, and just like the combat dial, you would have a little square next to each hour marker that contained your Lume, and then you had Lume in the hands. That was it. Finally, they put Lume in the entire marker. They filled the marker. Now, they did not do that on the combat dial. Please keep that in mind. It only applies to this dial here. But it is wonderful. It finally has, and you saw it in the very beginning on the photography that I did on my watch. The Lume is fantastic. Let's go ahead and break out the old flashlight here. And we're going to give you a good sense for just how bright that Lume really is. So we're going to get the camera to focus here, and then we're going to kill the lights. Oh yeah, that is just fantastic. And that is exactly what you expect when you're buying a dive watch. When you buy a dive watch, you expect great Lume. If you're a real diver, the further you go from the surface of the water, the less light is present. You need to be able to see it. But for most people that buy dive watches, we don't really dive. But we do expect to have all of the bells and whistles that a good dive watch has. And you know, when I go out at night, or when I go to a movie or anything, I want to look down at my watch and be able to read the time. Another thing, because you are in a very, 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 very deep diver, you do have the automatic helium escape valve there. That's very important when divers are diving in a saturated environment, when they're going way, 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 way deep down. They need to, when they come back up and they're having see, I'm not a diver, so I have to apologize for that. I guess it's decompressing. You have to sit in this chamber for a while. It's got helium in the mixture of the air, and that basically allows you to go back to normal over a certain amount of time. And I don't know how much time you spend in there. The problem with helium is it's lighter than air, and it can actually get into a watertight case. What happens is when you repressurize, it'll pop the crystal out, and it can actually cause some serious damage to the watch. So Breitling has, you don't have to unscrew it to make it work. It automatically opens up and releases any helium inside, then seals itself back up. So tons of great dive watches have it. I've got watches that are, $600, $700, $800 that have that. But it is nice to know that you do have a real, true, professional grade instrument made for diving. Now, before I put this on the wrist, I do want to show you the packaging very, very quickly. A lot of people make too big of a deal about unboxing these things and all that kind of good stuff. It's a box, guys. That's all it is. But it is a nice presentation. Breitling's overall packaging used to be nicer. You go back 10, 15 years. But now they focus a little bit less on the exterior and give you a little bit of a bonus. And I'll talk about that here right now. So nice, clean packaging. Looks great. This is what I'm talking about here. You go back several years, you had to purchase, if you wanted a travel case for your Breitling, you had to purchase it. Now they focus a little bit less on the exterior and give you the bonus of having a nice travel box. So your watch comes safely secured within this when you purchase it. I think I have my hang tag. Yeah, my hang tag is in here. The hang tag will be attached to your bracelet. And there is the retail right there, $43.25. Please don't pay that. Even if you go to a full retail store and get the full Breitling warranty, you can still get 10-15% off of that. All right, and then inside of there, voila, you will have a case guard that goes over your bezel. This is just a receipt. You're going to get your warranty card, which is probably the nicest warranty card on the market. I haven't taken the plastic off, but it's a nice piece of plastic, thicker than a credit card. And the camera does not want to focus on it. Got too many things going on here in the background. Wow, it really doesn't want to focus. There we go. So there's that, and then of course you have more receipts. This is your chronometer certificate, displaying to you that it did pass the COSC certification to be called a true chronometer. And then you have your instruction manual. And by the way, no, it does not tell you how to size the bracelet in there, which you can do if you really feel like tackling it yourself. And again, it's really not hard, but it's aggravating the very first time you ever try to do one. And God forbid you get a Navitimer that has a 7-row link system. That is really a pain in the ass. But if you feel like doing it yourself, all you need to do... This goes together somehow, doesn't it? Oh, you know what? I put it on the wrong side. Just, use YouTube as a resource. There's a few guys, I think Breitling Source is one of them, that has very nicely put an instructional video on how to size the bracelets. So you can use that. All right, let's get this bad boy on the wrist, give you an idea of the size and the thickness. Now, I wear my watches on my right wrist, so this is sized for my slightly larger right wrist, so it'll be a little bit loose. And there it is. Now, it looks really big right there, doesn't it? It does, but it's not. That's the thing. The case is huge. The case is very, very thick, and it's very, very hefty. But when you look at it from a distance, and you're not going to see that here, the camera is going to make it look totally different. It makes it look like the watch is just ginormous on me. It isn't. When I look at it myself, I look at it in the mirror, my friends tell me, they go, oh, well, that watch looks a little bit small on you. So keep that in mind. The small case opening for that smaller dial will allow for this much larger watch to look a little bit smaller on your wrist. And that may be very, very important for you. If you've been eyeballing these on the internet, going, I don't know, should I go for an Avenger in whatever series, whether it be the GMT, the chronograph, or the Seawolf, or do I want to get the, the Super Avenger? It's only a 3mm difference, but damn, that Super Avenger looks big. It is. The Super Avenger is huge, and it has a larger dial opening. It makes it look even larger. This, even though it's a big chunky case, the dial opening is smaller, so you have to kind of weigh those options right there. I love it. I think it's utterly fantastic. Again, it's a little bit lower key than a traditional Breitling, and I lucked out. I got a very good deal on this. I was actually eyeballing this for a while. I said, you know what, I'm just going to offset the cost because I know you guys just saw this, but I got my Panerai just a few weeks ago. I'm like, man, I just spent a boatload on that. I don't really want to spend more on this. I'll tell you what, I'm going to sell one of my custom knives, and that'll offset the cost. And I sold a knife that was worth more than the watch. And as luck would have it, the day I was deciding which one I was going to go for, it was either this or the Blue Dial. A buddy of mine, funny enough, one of my knife collector friends, not one of my watch collector friends, puts this up for sale. I'm like, well, what's your price? How much do you want for it? And the price was phenomenal, even lower than buying it through Joma Shop or AuthenticWatches.com. So I went, oh hell, I got to do that. What's the condition? He goes, well, there's a couple of little marks here on the clasp. That's going to take me about 4 minutes to get rid of. So totally happy. Love the watch. It's absolutely fantastic, especially if you're able to save some money. Absolutely go for it and do it. You've got a killer workhorse of a movement inside, insane luminescence, a sapphire crystal that you can see into that beautiful dial from pretty much any angle, in any lighting, any time of the day. And, at the end of the day, it's a Breitling. There's something about being able to say, I own a Breitling. I'm able to buy, I'm able to own, I'm able to wear one of the finest instruments of time that I can buy. Now, yes, if you're able to go out and buy a Patek Philippe or a Hublot or an Audemars or a Vacheron, that's great. But when you're talking $10, $20, $30, $50,000, $150,000, $300,000, there's a significant difference there. For the normal everyday person, this is a Grail watch. To be able to spend $4,000 on a watch is a major thing for a lot of people, for most people. So why not make it something that you're going to enjoy on a daily basis? There are no complications here that you don't need. There are no overly flashy parts about this watch. It just looks handsome. The dial is the blackest dial you'll ever see. You've got nice tall hand-applied hour markers. You've got a lot of lume. You've got a lot of water resistance. You've got reliability, accuracy, everything. So for what, you would spend $8,000 in Rolex for something comparable, or $10,000, or $15,000. So that makes this a value. Is it a value against a Timex or a G-Shock or an Invicta? No, obviously not. It's a hell of a lot more money. But you're getting a hell of a lot more for it. It's going to hold its value a little bit better. Now again, never buy a watch as an investment. Worst idea ever. However, this is going to fare a little bit better than some of those other watches. Alright guys, this ran way longer than I expected it to, but I'm going to get out of here for now, and very soon you're going to see a lot of uploads from me. I'm going to have some really, really way out watches, and yes, I am going to get to my Panerai review, hopefully in the next week. So stay tuned, because this channel is about to explode.